Hey there. Over the past couple months, I've been talking about a series of North African countries. All told, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya only amount to around 60 million people, but these countries represent an extraordinary opportunity for the region, the world, and even for the United States. Today we'll be talking about why North Africa is a lot more important than you think it is. At the end of my video on Algeria, I talked about the real possibility that that country could adopt the democratic reforms of its smaller neighbor Tunisia. If that happens, we could see a true peaceful revolution spreading across North Africa. Morocco has its own set of problems that I'd like to do a video about someday. Western Sahara and the long frozen conflict with Algeria are both tricky issues, but with growing democracy and prosperity in the region, those issues should get easier to solve. The incentives for peace between Morocco and Algeria are high. As of today, Tunisia is a lone democracy with a failing economy because the richest countries in the region want Tunisia's democracy to fail, and its nearest neighbors are in turmoil. If Algeria's transition to democracy continues to succeed, however, we're looking at a very different set of circumstances. Morocco will probably want to get on board with 52 million people striving for prosperity and democracy. Morocco has been sputtering towards constitutional monarchy since the Arab Spring anyway, and it's already begun the job of successfully integrating its economy with Europe's. If Morocco can resolve its issues with a more democratic Algeria, we're now talking about a bloc of almost 90 million people across 3 countries in some very strategic territory. Now, I can't pretend to know exactly what these countries would want to do with more democratic governments, but I have some ideas for what they could accomplish. A customs union between just these 3 countries would have incredible economic benefits. The opening of the border between Morocco and Algeria alone would provide an extraordinary boost to tourism and all other forms of commerce. You could take a road trip the long way around the Mediterranean from Turkey to Tunisia. I'd love to do that. The political possibilities are even more intriguing. Some folks will loudly tell you that the people in these countries are not Arabs, but these countries are members of the Arab League, and having 3 democracies in that talking shop would matter. Libya has been an open wound since the US-NATO invasion 8 years ago. The medieval stupidity bloc of the Arab League, led by Saudi Arabia, has been able to keep Libya in disarray for almost a decade now. A prosperous democratic bloc directly to the east of Libya could end the chaos quickly. The threat that Algeria's transition poses to the old disorder may in fact be exactly why Saudi Arabia's pet Libyan general attacked the UN-backed government in Tripoli this past April. Saudi Arabia sees a real threat here, and they are absolutely right about that. Their monarchy's whole existence is based on the claim that their region is too backward for modern or democratic forms of government. Saudi Arabia is desperate to install an authoritarian firebreak in Libya to keep peace and democracy from spreading. Saudi Arabia has been fighting the Arab Spring since 2011, and in North Africa, it looks like they may finally be losing. Beyond Libya, there are the 100 million people of Egypt. The combined efforts of Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States will probably keep Egypt's dictator going for a while, but Sudan is already slipping towards democracy. Their multi-decade dictator, Omar Al-Bashir, is in jail. Saudi Arabia is spending billions trying to keep the military government in power, but the protesters aren't having it. Sudan's neighbor, Ethiopia, is already going through a near-miraculous transition towards peace and human rights. Now, all of that sounds very nice, but I could see why it wouldn't appeal to some policymakers in the United States and Europe. Europe is primarily concerned with stopping migration, and they may want weaker countries in North Africa that can be more easily bribed to do that. The United States really likes Israel, and there may be some concern about what a more stable and prosperous Muslim North Africa means for that U.S. client state. These concerns miss the forest for the trees. There are some very real and very self-interested reasons for the United States and Europe to support these countries. For most of human history, the big show has been in Asia. In industry, culture, religion, and wealth, it was India and China that were the big hubs. Europe was just some soggy peninsula up to the north somewhere. Starting 500 years ago and really picking up about 250 years ago, something very weird happened. Western Europeans figured out there were a couple continents to their west, and they built a new and unprecedented center of wealth and power on the backs of African slaves and American natives. For the past 2 centuries or so, the world's major players have been found in the Atlantic world rather than the Pacific one. Well, that's changing now. Asia has been staging a massive comeback for like 4 decades, and it's probably not ever going to stop. The old Atlantic economy is beginning to become the backwater it once was. The US is shifting its focus to the Pacific, and so is the rest of the world. The Atlantic economy, the eastern United States, and Europe especially are stagnating. It doesn't have to be that way. Africa's numerous countries all have incredible potential. But to keep the Atlantic wealth engine running, everybody's got to be firing on all cylinders. All pathways have got to be open. We should be fostering economic growth, not sponsoring Saudi Arabia's vandalism. In 2011, NATO's invasion of Libya threw a screwdriver into the middle of this wealth engine. North Africa has now experienced a lost decade, and that has contributed to Europe's decade of stagnation as well. Pursuing a forever war on the behalf of Saudi Arabia has made some U.S. defense companies and congresspeople very rich, but it has also kept half the world poorer than it needs to be. This has also been terrible for every U.S. and European company that isn't based on killing people. This stupidity is throwing the world out of balance and giving the Pacific economy a free decade to leap ahead of the Atlantic economy. The United States benefits from Pacific economic growth, of course, but it would benefit more from more balanced growth. These African countries are essential to that. Some of you may have wondered why I've put so much time into covering these North African countries recently. They can often seem marginal to world events. But in fact, they are central to the 21st century aspirations of both Europe and the United States. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and you can click on the bell next to the subscribe button to get notifications whenever I upload a video. Thanks.